How has the pandemic affected the Parliament's functions?
It's a great question, because I think it has really affected the way Parliament operates. Parliament's there for a number of reasons, right? So one is to have some level of scrutiny. So usually when Parliament meets, we have 1 hour question period, or about 50 minutes of question period each day, and that essentially is the way that people hold the government to account. There's also legislative work. So we have legislation that goes through Parliament, that's introduced, that goes through first reading, second reading, third reading. A standard piece of legislation will take close to a year to pass, anywhere from 6 months to a year to go through. And then there's scrutiny for that too. So legislation will go to a committee will scrutinize it, then they will make recommendations, they'll bring it back to Parliament. And once it passes Parliament in first reading, second reading, and third reading, it goes to the Senate for, again, the same process. And if the Senate's not happy with the bill, they'll send it back. So all of that is now condensed into, I think the 3 pieces of legislation have passed within a couple of hours. So really, you don't have the same level of scrutiny that you would have in usual circumstances. So I think it does really limit democracy in that sense. But what we've done so far, at least in the last 4 weeks, is have what's called virtual parliament. So we're meeting basically about 2 hours a week, 2 hours a day for 3 days a week. And we have what's called a COVID committee, and we meet virtually. All MPs are, in different parts of the country. We meet virtually and we have discussions, but it's not the same thing. I mean, there's severe limitations in what we can do. There's security issues. We're not actually voting on anything. So there's a lot of limitations in how we do that. I'm not sure this can go on for too long, but I think this is a kind of a compromise solution. The technology, I think, is finally there. Like, we did not have the technology to be able to do this until about a month ago. So the technology is there. It's not as secure as I think we want it to be, but I think it's something that at least gives us some level of scrutiny, but perhaps not to the extent that you would be used to in a regular Parliament.
Another question similar to that we would want to know is how is the federal government working with the municipal and provincial governments in the GTA regarding COVID legislation?
So from a legislative perspective, we can pass legislation that's in our, that's constitutionally under our jurisdiction, and we've been doing that. But from a practical perspective, we do need to work with the provinces and not necessarily municipalities, but in reality, the municipalities are part of the equation as well. So we have regularized meetings with the Prime Minister and the premiers. The Deputy Prime Minister meets with her counterparts and many of the premiers on a regular basis. And right now, we are working with folks like, for example, Public Health Agency of Canada works with their provincial counterparts on an hourly basis. We have a post-pandemic outlook already that's kind of starting to take shape, and that involves how do we restart the economy. And we already have Minister McKenna, who's the Minister of Infrastructure, talking to her counterparts in their provinces and territories to see what are our priorities, what do we need to do, what are the things that we need to, that are shovel-ready, that are important, that can stimulate the economy and create some jobs. And then we have more practical stuff that are current, like the Canada Emergency Rent, the rent relief. Which is a provincial-federal partnership. So the federal government puts in 25%, provincial government puts in 25%, and it's something that both governments have to agree to. So there's a lot of different engagements taking place between the provincial and the federal government. Very recently, the City of Toronto, led by Mayor Tory, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities have asked for $10 billion of direct funding to the cities. Constitutionally, the cities are a creature of the provincial government, so the federal government really doesn't cannot override the province and say, okay, we're going to fund that. So right now, we're trying to figure out what the right engagement is and what the right level of mix is for the federal government to support municipalities, but at the same time making sure that the province is not let off the hook to participate in that process. So we need the province to play a very important role in funding it, and then together I think we will have some support for the municipalities going forward.